Alright, welcome to Kerbal 1.7.3. Anyway, at our last mission we had returned, we had a little bit of money, and we're limited to 30 parts in the airplane hangar, but we have all this experience here to get, and I've also gone ahead and completed my tech tree with the, so on the third mission, I completed 1, 2, 3 tech trees, and now when I fly by the moon, and especially Minmus, and they want me to probably go into orbit and do a spacewalk in both these places, so by the next 4 missions, this tech tree should be completed, and they're a little longer, but what I've done is I've purchased these parts, right? And we also have these parts and these things here. So that's basically what I've bought. Now I'm going to go to the airplane hangar. And this is an aircraft I just built. I threw it together really quick. And I want to show you some things about it. It's got front wings. It's got some rear stabilizing wings, but these are the wings that give you lift, and these wings kind of help stabilize. They give you a little bit of lift, but they're more about control and keeping you flying in a forward direction, like the fins on the tail of an arrow. You know, they don't help it fly, they just help it fly straight. Anyway, so this is the center of lift, and the whole, I mean the center of mass. And the whole idea about this is if we teeter-totter this airplane in every direction, that's what we come up with. And that's the center of mass. And what we want to do is we want to put this wing and about the center of this wing, which I'm going to call right here, and the front of this wing, this almost needs to be in the middle between those 2 points and moving back and forth. Of course, as the fuel goes up and down, let me show you, that moves around. So airplanes are meant to fly best when empty, but since this is a new design and we haven't even given it its first test flight, it's going to have to be best to take off when full. We're going to have to worry about the landing best problems later. So anyway, I'm not going to overburden it with the oxidizer, which the oxidizer would be if I wanted to yank this cap off and put it like a rocket engine in there and then try to achieve altitude or space, but it'd be limited if I did. It'd be purely experimental and somewhat dangerous and a waste of time, just like you know, like we did in reality. But you learn a little bit about aviation, and you definitely learn about supersonic flight and some of the problems associated with it, and the necessity for, let's say, computer microcorrections and the ability to steer in extremely thin air, where I'm talking about almost no atmosphere at all, which means these wings here are going to have no control. None. Zero. So if we were actually going to think about doing that, we would want to put some kind of control mechanism somewhere like this. That's a reaction wheel. We might also want to put some monopropellant in and put some little directional thrusters. Oh, here's a nice gyroscopic. Get enough gyroscopes spinning, you can twist around. But anyway, we're going to be in atmosphere, so that's not the concept here. We also have the let's just look at that again, the center of balance. All right, now, the wings are supposed to be in a special place, and they create something called lift. And the opposite of lift, and the thing that's going to be pulling us down at the same time, is drag. Lift and drag. Now, we're going to compensate for that with thrust. Okay? Now, one of the problems is weight. So we have a thing called a thrust to weight ratio, and the center of mass versus, now that we put wings on the center of mass, so it has lift. So we have the center of lift right there, bam. And it's blue. Now, the whole idea is to have your wheels on the center of lift. Otherwise, it's going to ride down the runway like this and never take off, or it's going to go like this and the nose will never lift up, and either way you go off the edge of the runway. Now, if you're behind it and you can fly, you actually will take off when you go off the edge of the runway. Opposite, you're going to go off the runway into the drink, below deck. So never fly below deck. Haven't you seen Top Gun? Oh, new Top Gun's coming out. If you haven't seen the trailer, go watch it. If you think it's too much, don't. It looks like something in snowy mountains. So it's definitely not going to be the typical ocean aircraft carrier Navy concept that's oh so common. So the movie's probably highly unrealistic. He's way too old for a frickin' Navy fighter pilot. Did not use profanity, but it maybe sounded like it. Woo! Anyway, okay, so we have the center of lift, which the gear has to be in the center of lift. That's the rear gear. And the center of mass is supposed to be situated for landing, not taking off, optimally. But we've kind of set it up for optimally taking off. We'll just deal with that landing part later, and which is going to mean we are going to have to move this wing a little bit. These wings might be just little movements, and we might, if every time we make a movement, we're going to have to check this one. So let's just turn those off. We also have the center of thrust. You can see that's coming, everything's almost on the same center line, so that's good. Anyway, I predict, and I've just built this, it's never been up, I predict this is going to fly. So, and the reason I can predict that with a fair amount of certainty is because I followed some principles and rules of aviation, and I set some stuff up too, like this is my yaw plane. See, I turned off roll and pitch. You didn't see me do that. But all these wings have special assignments. That's my roll wing, it's my pitch wing, yaw wing. So we have pitch, yaw, and roll. Pitch is up and down, roll is back and forth like this, and yaw is when you go like a fishtail, flying sideways, like my shoulder's coming right at you, but I'm facing that way. So I'm facing this way, but I'm flying this way. That's called yaw. And what you do is you use your foot adjustment or whatever yaw adjustment you have. Some people are hooking them up to a little differently now for fly-by-wire, and you hit that yaw and line it up so you're flying in a straight direction. It feels right, not like flying down sideways. And plus you're burning more gas and you have more drag flying sideways. And anyway, taking off, hitting save, taking off. Now the whole point of this exercise was to collect some science, but since I'm limited to 30 parts and I'm picky about my airplane, I don't have any science experiments. But what I can do is take a crew report and keep that. I can take an EVA report, keep that. And by pushing the T button or clicking there on the SAS, you'll get pilot stability control. I've turned off my wheel steering, so I'll be steering through my yaw mechanism. I'm going to check my throttle before I turn on my engines. It is down. That's mandatory. All airplanes must check their throttle before start, and putting it and the fuel mixtures and everything needed and appropriate. Oh, I was talking about the yaw, going this way, pointing this way, and driving this way. So with a propeller airplane, this is created naturally from the spinning of the blade. So you'll probably have about what we call a 3% yaw flap, at least on takeoff, And then of course wind and everything else is going to affect you once you get up in the air, so you'll have to probably adjust that to that. But you're going to have a yaw flat takeoff. Now jet engines don't do it, and they have dual props that spin opposite directions, so they don't do it either. And I don't know if turboprops have some kind of adjustment that gets rid of that by pitching. I don't think they do, but anyway, anything's possible. So I'm going to go ahead and give her gas. Now this is full throttle. What we're supposed to do is ease into it, start quarter throttle, just taxi movement first, then quarter throttle, then half throttle. Now it's set up that we're supposed to be pulling, rotating or pulling back on our stick about as we pass that building, and that's so they can watch us. And it also gives you the other half of the runway if you have an emergency, like you blow out a tire or your engine explodes. Well, in a jet you pretty much are committed. About the only thing that's going to abort is an engine exploding or something like that. And then you'll probably still go off the end of the runway. You're just moving too fast. But anyway, the idea is the second half of the runway is for your emergency abort. So there's 2 or 3 sections, sometimes 4, like LAX has a runway of 4 sections. That means they might ask you to land on section 3. You got to fly over 1 and 2 and touch down on section 3. And they might have an aircraft right on your tail touching down on section 1. You're going to touch down on 3. You can't touch down on 1. They'll run up behind you. You'll be landing on the same strip at the same time, and you're not fighter pilots. Anyway, so I have made an aircraft that flies. Right now I'm test flying it. Like if I let go of the stick, what happens? Alright. It's front heavy. So that's alright. It's just when you're front heavy, you kind of can't wait for the ground. Now I'm going to try to execute a turn maneuver. And what I'm watching for here, why I maintain a 10-degree upward glide slope, is how fast my my rate is pulling off to 270. And what I'm hoping is that I can get back from 90 to 270 in reasonable altitude at full throttle without having major issues. Okay, so now I don't have any thrust and I'm going straight for the ground, so I have to introduce my thrust again. Also, you can point to the ground, and this is what I'm talking about. Nose heavy aircraft, I'm getting to be afraid now. This is where the fear is kicking in, because if you look, my vertical speed indicator at the top of the screen was at -10, but now that I have 80, it looked like it's happened about 80. At 80 degrees, that's my stall at 80 meters per second. Yep, somewhere in there. I haven't found it exactly, but my stall is definitely at 70 or 80, because I'm stalling out now. I'm having to really fight it. So what I'm trying to do is fly at my stall speed in control, and then I fly over the top of the runway. I shouldn't have done that. And then once I'm flying over the top of the runway, I drop my throttle down and then keep flying. And what happens is, if I'm not too clunky, oh shit! I'm sorry, I jerked at the last minute. It's hard to move your hands. If I'm not too herky-jerky, let me go ahead and revert that back to space plane hangar. I did make one that flies, but it didn't land worth a crap. Now, here's the deal about landing. 5, 5, 10. So I put 20 in and 18 there. You remember it needs to land empty, not heavy. Sometimes pilots, if they take off and have a problem and they have to turn around and come back, they can't. They're too heavy. So what they'll do, if they have no choice, and sometimes they don't, is dump all their fuel. I don't know where they do it or how they do it. It's probably bad for the environment, but they open up nozzles and drain their fuel. Alright, so what I've done is I've taken all the fuel out of this craft, but about 20 or 30, whatever those units are. Now you can press your V button and you can set up like a different chase. So, and then you can roll your mouse. Alright, so let's go S or T, and then we'll just start because we've already, we don't need to check our throttle. Alright, so I'm assuming that my stall speed is going to be 71 or 75. So that would also be my rotate speed. So I see 75 and I rotate. Alright, it's not 77. Let's check 85. Alright, that plane wouldn't even fly empty. So that's a problem. Anyway, I somewhat demonstrated my ability to make an airplane fly on first shot. My speculation is that everything's going to be resolved by just pulling that forward like that. And then of course, like I said, it makes an adjustment there. And you want to have, how many times have I said this? You want your center of lift behind your center of mass, so you have a forward flying aircraft that's controllable and not slippery. Let's try to get this to take off. Now, just because it won't take off doesn't mean it won't fly, but we really should be able to do anything with it with the gas tanks empty like this. Or, you know, in reality, we wouldn't be able to get it certified, which means test pilots have to run it through established stall speeds. If you're giving the regular pilot too much power, you can, that's the time to make the adjustment back, you know, take the power out, or add more actually. But let's just get after it. I'm going to still assume that my stall speed is between 71 and 75, and that's when I'm going to choose to rotate. So here we come. We're at 61 now, and there's 71, 75. Alright, rotating's not working for me. We may have to take off the end of the runway. No. Alright, something's really a mess. Let me see what's going on. I may have made the Alright, hey, we had it flying full of gas. I feel like putting everything back that way and flying it around and emptying it out like the natural way and then trying to land. But Kerbal right now doesn't have a dump fuel option. That's just real world pilots that do that. Alright, still assuming 71. And I got that number from flying that other aircraft and watching when it would have problems. Okay, there it is. So that was real easy. As soon as I hit 71, I pulled it back, and see, I just wasn't pulling that wing far enough forward. So what I could probably do to make it look better is put another one of these on the front of that. But I don't want to block that door. And maybe could put a wire cage between here and here, or a strut. But anyway, I can feel this. This flies good, and it flies good empty. Watch this. See, when they're empty, they're light. So you pull on that stick and they do it right. You can just tell. It's almost like it flies better empty than with gas. So anyway, I was doing 49, remember? Below the 70. So what you have to do is point your nose down and get going 70. And then that's your stall speed. And then you back off on your gas until you're flying 70 in control at the proper glide slope. I'm not. I'm in a Mayday emergency landing. Mayday, Mayday, emergency landing. Anyway. So I just qualified. So what you do is you get your stall. Wow, it's not in a dead stall at 40, but it's stalling. I'm gonna bounce. Alright, better. It's terrible. Terrible, terrible, terrible. Anyway, I'm getting closer. I made the wrong adjustments, but gosh, I'm trying to keep the videos under 27 minutes and I feel like I've gone over. So I'm going to put on the brakes and stop the video right here and say thanks for watching.